Director of Alumni Relations on campus. On behalf of our office, I would like to welcome you to today's virtual Aluminar, Creating a Magnetic Personal Brand, with our host, Liz Theresa, grad 11. Before we begin, there are a few important housekeeping items that I'd like to address in order to make this a great Zoom experience for everyone involved. First and foremost, I must mention that this presentation will be recorded for future use. In the top right corner of your screen, you will see two viewing options, full screen and speaker view. We suggest the speaker view for optimal viewing. Throughout the presentation, please keep your own screen muted and with the video off at all times as to not distract from our presentation. Question and answers will take place immediately following the talk. Please feel free to type in the questions at any time during the presentation using the chat feature in the middle of your bottom toolbar. Questions will be collected and answered at the end. We thank you for your attention to these guidelines, and it is with great pleasure that I'd like to introduce you to our guest host, Robert Bradley. Dr. Rob Bradley is head of Bridge Research at State Street Associates, a team that bridges the gap between empirical finance research and practice. He is co-chair of the Bridgewater State University Employee Network at State Street and is on the board of State Street's Numerates Network. He is also a part-time faculty member at Boston College and Northeastern University. He holds a bachelor's degree in economics from Bridgewater State University, class of 2012, where he also majored in English, a master's degree in applied economics from Northeastern University, class of 2014, and received his PhD in applied economics in 2020 at Northeastern University. Rob lives in Bridgewater with his wife and his 3 sons. Take it away, Rob.
Thank you, Alexis, and welcome back to those of you who I've seen before. We got a lot of familiar faces and some new folks here, so welcome to everybody. I'm really excited for today's talk. Selfishly for myself, this is a topic that I'm looking forward to hearing and getting some tips and some insight on. And I think all of you are too. So we have a really good talk ahead of us. I'm very excited. So without further ado, let me introduce today's speaker. So Liz Theresa is a business coach, web designer, and founder of LizTheresa.com. She helps entrepreneurs rise and be the star of their business. She's been in business for nearly a decade, offering intuitive business coaching, website design, and copywriting services. She's also the host of the acclaimed Liz on Biz podcast, streaming weekly wherever you podcast. It was named by Forbes as one of 12 podcasts that helps small businesses earn more sales. So without further ado, we're all excited to hear what you have to say, Liz. So please take it away. Oh, you're still on mute.
How about now? Are we good? Yay! Oh, hey, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. So I lost my Zoom button, you guys, and so that's why I couldn't unmute myself. And man, what a tough act to follow. Rob, you're very impressive. This is the first time I met Rob. Alexis, thank you so much for having me. I'm such a proud alum of Bridgewater. I had the best time there. I was also an English graduate like you, Rob, but I went and got my master's at Bridgewater right after I went to Stonehill for my undergrad. I'm a super passionate person when it comes to the topic of personal branding. And although I have slides to share with you guys, unfortunately, yeah, Rob, I don't even know. My buttons are all not working. So
okay.
Should I troubleshoot leave?
A bit. Yeah, maybe sign up and come back on. If you want to, here, I don't know if, can you see the chat? If I
Yeah.
Here, I will.
I might leave and come back if that's okay, because it looks like it like froze like my little window, so it won't let me click anything.
All right, let me
you guys, I Zoom all the time, so Judgy McJudgerson's in my audience. You know who you are.
If you want to email me your slides as a backup,
okay,
I'll
cool.
Set you my email address as well, but we'll give you a second. I'll vamp for a few minutes while you're
vamp, and I will be right back.
All right. We'll let Liz sign off and sign back on.
I think I might need you to boot me. Can you boot me?
I can kick you off, frozen. I think. Yeah, you got nothing, huh?
Yeah. Oh, here we go. I think
that was a great exit. Well, she figured it out. So we'll give her just a minute to come back on.
I'll come back to talk to you for a minute.
There you go.
We're really happy to have everyone here today. The Aluminar series has been a great thing this year, don't you think?
I think so. And you were just saying that you actually were able to do some in-person stuff recently. I took my kids to the beach this past weekend. So it's the first time they've been out in public, like really around people in over a year. And my 2-year-old, he was born in 2019 in August. So he doesn't remember anything from when the world was normal. So he spent the entire day on the beach saying hi to literally every person. We got to get him used to it, but I'm excited because I think, going forward, we could keep doing these virtually, but also maybe have like an in-person component to it too, which would be fun.
Yeah, I think, our plan is definitely for everyone who's on right now to keep these as a part of our regular programming, because we've had a lot of folks be able to join us that might not live close by to Bridgewater. And, we will be starting to do, some new alumni events. And, most exciting, are planning to have homecoming in person this year. So that will be on October 23rd. So we're very excited about that. We're planning to be in person.
Perfect.
Probably be one of our first big events. I'm looking to see if Liz has rejoined. Don't see her yet. So everyone, please hang tight.
Be back soon, hopefully.
So hard with this virtual stuff. You never really know what's going to happen. Here she comes.
Here she is. I was just going to say too.
We always make it work, and I appreciate everyone on this call.
I'm back.
Okay.
You made it.
You're back.
I have the button now. I'm just going to hit share.
Okay, there we go.
So my button doesn't go away, you guys. I promise I'm worth the wait. Do you mind if I just dive right in?
Yeah.
Please do.
Did you vamp well while I was gone?
Alexis helped.
Alexis is a good vamper.
She is.
And then, okay, I pinned you too, so we should be good.
Thank you, everybody.
Take it away, Liz.
In the age of pandemics, I think we all have infinite patience, and I so appreciate yours today, and I'm so happy to have you with me. So, personal branding, what's so ironically funny about this? It's your window to the world. And so let me first start by introducing you to me. And so I'm a person that's always, I am always 5 minutes late to most things, although I apologize for being late today here with you, because I am very excited and happy to be here. These slides just represent some different parts of my life. So you'll see my adorable son. If you love babies, you'd be obsessed with him. He's turning 2 in June. So I'm a very, very proud mom. I'm also a branding and business coach. I make websites really all the time. Websites are my favorite thing. And in fact, I might even be making a t-shirt that says, I love websites, just because I'm that passionate about it. This May, so this month marks 10 years in business for me. And I graduated Bridgewater in May 2011. So the second I graduated, that was actually when I decided, I was like, OMG, I really need to get into this online marketing and digital space. Because of course, back in 2011, I know maybe for some of you, that was a really, really, really long time ago, or you were a baby, or maybe for some of you, that just happened. Because for me, it's I blinked. But I got into a very bad economy. Could not get a job to save my life. And I just knew I wanted to help people in business position themselves and position the way that they communicate their identity to the world better. And so you'll notice that I've said a few things that kind of correlate here. So it's branding is the way anybody communicates an idea to the world, and personal branding is the way that you communicate yourself and your personal identity as a person to the world online. Okay. And I'm just speaking in the context of online, but really everywhere. It's just that digital, is most of our lives now. And if you podcast, or if you are a person who enjoys listening to them, you might enjoy listening to the Liz on Biz podcast. Forbes said it was good. So I don't know. I think it's pretty good too. Here we got a really handy dandy definition of personal branding. So Liz, if you're saying in your head, Liz, this sounds like a marketing jargony term, I don't know what you're really talking about. This definition from the wonderful people at Wikipedia is pretty good. So personal branding, the conscious and intentional effort to create and influence public perception of an individual by positioning them as an authority in their industry. Think about this in the context of the world we live in, where like, I mean, if you look at Popeye's ad campaign right now, it's all YouTube influencers. And when you think of what an influencer is, it's a person that has been exceedingly good at creating a really strong personal brand. So influencer marketing is like the twisted sister of what we're talking about right now. And when you are elevating yourself, your authority, your credibility, and differentiating yourself, and I have a cute infographic to explain what these different pillars really mean with personal branding, it expands your impact. And here it is. So you guys, I made this last night because I was like, we need an infographic. And I love cake, right? Who doesn't love cake? And so what we have here are the 3 different parts of the personal brand cake, because cake is delicious. And at the basis of everything, we have your credibility. And I'll be talking a lot about credibility in today's presentation. Uniqueness, which is that special gooey center of who you are. It's the thing that makes you different. It's the you-ness of you. It's the Lizness of Liz in the context of who I am, but it's the you-ness of you. So that's your uniqueness. It's the gooey stuff that sometimes feels impalpable or hard to get in touch with, but I have tips and tricks to get to that. And then authority is kind of the thing that comes from it. So if you look at credibility, there is a reason that credibility is your bottom layer and authority is your top. Okay. And I'll take you through the nuances of why this infographic, although adorable, is really important. And to remind you too, that like, yes, you're special, not just because I think I'm Mr. Rogers and like everybody is special, although that is very true. Everyone is special, but that like we all have a platform, even just by being here. You have a name. It's in the Zoom chat. And then when you think about yourself on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or TikTok, wherever you hang out, you have a platform. And by having a platform, you have a privilege, no matter what. And when I say privilege, it means that you're important. You're not just somebody. And that if you're here, you likely want to expand your impact. And I have to say, like, in the context of understanding personal branding myself, this was like the hardest thing for me to come to terms with about my own personal brand. Is I would always say, well, why do I really matter? Does anybody really care what I think, right? These are the kinds of things that we say to ourselves, and then we talk ourselves out of posting about whatever it is we're working on, or like trying out to get that job, or whatever the next thing is when we're trying to move the needle in our life or in our work. We always are like, but why me? I'm just me. And it takes a long time, but when you realize your why, of like, why are you here in the world? And not that I have this all figured out and I'm not Oprah, but trying. When you realize your why, it connects you to the importance of what it is you're here to do. So like, it's my job to help people rise and be the stars of their lives and their business. That's like what I do. And when you think about what that is, I mean, think about all the people that you know that play second fiddle in their own life. Who wants to be best supporting actor or actress in your own existence? That's so sad. So when you think about yourself as you're in the driver's seat, what can you accomplish? If it's a business thing that you're working on, or if you're trying to have career advancement or making some type of social change, what impact would you like to make? And realize that your ideas are important and it's super valid for you to have them. And I know it sounds cheesy, but it's really, really true. And you kind of have to believe me if we're going to keep going. So keep going. Creating your personal brand. So remember the cake, guys? We talked about the cake before. What makes a personal brand successful are those 3 components of cake. If you think about it like a 3-layer cake, which now I think you can't undo, that's just what you're going to think about now. It's credibility at the bottom. And I didn't put them in order because I like to confuse you, but it's credibility at the bottom, which is sharing things of value. Credibility, the way that I want you to think about this in the context of your online self, it's the content you share. So by sharing things of value, to show thought leadership around a specific topic or something, like if like whatever it is, whatever your thing is, for me, it's like websites, being successful, branding. So this presentation, example of credibility. I'm giving you credible, high value content, right? Uniqueness. It's the Lizness of how I do it. It's the pink. It's the logo. It's the pictures of my baby. It's the jokes that you may not be laughing at. It's all of those things. It's the gooey stuff in the middle that's going to make my content feel different because it's coming from me. So that's the part where you need to like yourself, or like at least find things to like about yourself. A way that I love to think about personal branding, and this might work for you too, is actually that it's a little story I'll tell you, is that when I started my business name was actually Liz Downey, Downey. And in fact, when I went to Bridgewater, I was Liz Downey. And my married name is Liz Anderson. But when I started my business, I was Liz Downey, and I had the hardest time with personal branding because for me, the name Liz Downey was the Liz Downey that went to Norwell High School, and the Liz Downey that didn't get the lead in the play, or it was the Liz Downey that really was super, like, couldn't find her social circle until she was in college, and now she hates everybody who she went to high school with. I don't really hate everybody, but you're getting what I'm going with. It has, my name for me had some baggage, even though I genuinely liked myself. And so I became Liz Theresa, Theresa being my middle name. And the reason why I tell you this story is, like, when you think about the concept of what's in a name, right? So a lot is the answer. So for me, becoming Liz Theresa as my personal brand, that really gave me a clean slate. And even if you don't change your name for your online persona, I want you to give yourself a clean slate and know that you don't have to bring any baggage or like who you have been and whatever to the what you're putting out in the world. You can take a clean slate whenever you want, and you can say, okay, like, what are my favorite things about being Liz, or what are my favorite things about being myself, and how do I project that to the world and be more of that? And so for me, it's like clearly the color pink, laughing, having fun, connecting with people, helping people. Those are my favorite parts of who I was, and I didn't have to carry any of the other stuff that might have been there. Like, oh, Liz, the Liz that didn't get the part doesn't have to be part of personal branding. Okay. So when you think about this for yourself, this might even be a prompt to do later. Like, what are your favorite things about you? And how can we amplify that in your image? Okay. So think about that. That's what we're talking about with uniqueness. Oops. Apparently I scrolled. The other thing is authority. So when I'm talking about authority, that has a lot to do with, like, you know, people, like, authority is like the next level. So once you have credibility and likability, which is the uniqueness factor, it's kind of part of both of those things, you can elevate your authority. And authority gets you things like PR opportunities. You can go on podcasts and talk about whatever this mission is that you're focused on. And that's kind of what I'm talking about when I get to authority, but I'll go deeper in just a minute. So yes, this is you now. What if I don't know my personal brand? Oh, the drama. If you don't know, in the uniqueness exercise, that's one part of this, right? But it's like, what would you like to change in the world? What would I like to be known for? And then this is one of my favorite ones. When do I feel so focused and absorbed I lose track of time? And so for me, it's talking about business, designing logos, and making websites. I love, like, again, t-shirt. You guys, t-shirt is coming. LizTheresa.com, go buy it. I'm just kidding. It's not there yet. Don't leave me. But yeah, it's an exercise of dreaming. It's also an exercise of Googling yourself. I mean, we always make fun of people that Google themselves, but knowing where you're coming from is really important to seeing where you want to be. So, like, how have you been showing up? What isn't working, and how can we change that into how you want to be showing up? Because sometimes it's easy to reverse engineer to go from point A to point B and find the steps that we need. And part of that, Googling. So after you Google the fancy people. And I say fancy people, like, who does what you want to do, right? Is there somebody out there that seems to be, I don't know, of course, the grass is always greener, guys. Nobody is perfect. But if there's people out there that look like how you want to look, or talk like that, or are doing certain things that you want to be doing, how can you change the way that you're showing up now? Like, and one of my favorite tips is actually, like, I think about this with myself. I always have somebody that I'm watching that's doing something cool, and it always gives me something else to shoot for. And there's a person specifically I can think of right now. I'm not going to tell you because I don't know, I'm shy, not at all, but I'm thinking of somebody right now, and I would think, okay, like, where does she shop? What does she eat? Like, what would she do in this situation? Another question you can ask yourself is, if I were the CEO of my life or my business or whatever it is I'm creating in the world, this movement or this idea I want to explore, if I were the CEO of that, would I behave differently? That's a really interesting question. Like, how are you playing small? Something else that you can do to kind of check yourself before you wreck yourself is to think about, when you introduce yourself to individuals, do you ever say, oh, I'm just Liz Theresa, I just make some websites, it's nothing, I just, was in Forbes, who cares, right? Do you ever just yourself? Because you so should not be justing yourself, because justing yourself, you're minifying all of that stuff, and it's really bad programming for your brain. So this is going back to, you have to kind of like believe it. You really have to believe in yourself. And it's not just the power of positive thinking stuff. It's more just like, believe that you matter, believe that the work matters. The work always matters. And doesn't mean your job specifically, but the work, whatever the work is. That's such an intrinsic part of personal branding, because there's a lot of people that, like, people will be like, well, I just want to be important, I just want to be an influencer and get free leggings and go on Instagram. And that's all well and good. I want free leggings, right? But like, I think what's important to realize is, a lot of times people become experts and influencers when they have those pieces of the cake. Go back to the cake, eat the cake. Remember that the bottom layer is the credibility and the content. You got to be saying something. Okay. So definitely look at the fancy people, check them out, get a sense of how they show up in the world. Yeah. Shop where they shop. I didn't say eat what they eat, but eat what they eat the cake, read what they read, learn what you can. That's just a shot of Cher from the movie Clueless. Who doesn't love that? That's an adorable movie, right? You guys, what a great movie. Anyway, so what is the linchpin that is between you and successful personal brand you? Let's discover this right now. Oh my God, you guys, so this is so funny. This is a GIF I made of myself. And I thought it would just be fun to spice up the presentation in case I was boring, but hopefully I'm not boring. But it's to be credible. So this is the bottom layer, right? We're talking about the bottom layer. Telling the truth, sharing valuable content. These are all tips for boosting your own credibility and quality of content. Engaging your audience by being honest and telling stories from your actual life. And remembering that you have to be open if you want others to be open to you. This is true in so many areas of life, right? Like, you have to be willing to invest in your business if you want people to actually buy your products or invest in you. The hole you invest through is the hole you receive through. That's something that somebody taught me once, and it stayed in my brain. But like, when you think of it like a hole, if you're investing like this much, right, you're only going to get like, but like if you're investing like this much, your world just gets bigger. So investing time, money, whatever, into whatever this endeavor is, that is equivalent of what you'll receive energetically, right? And talk to people. And even if there are shy people that have great personal brands, because they're really good one-on-one. So slide into some DMs and don't be afraid to ask some questions. This GIF of me, because it's wicked funny, and I just want to tell you, I know it's GIF, but I say GIF, and it is what it is, guys. I know it's pronounced GIF. You don't need to like shame me, but listen. So this was because I used to do Facebook Live Friday, was like a type of content that I always did, and I stuck to doing it every Friday. And so when Starbucks was going through this phase where they kept releasing new Frappuccinos, like every Friday they had a Frappuccino, I would just go try it live. And this was, I don't want to say it was gross, because I don't want to be mean, because I like Starbucks, but like, so this was the unicorn Frappuccino, and like so sour. So like when I say sour, you can see me saying it in the graphic there, but like it is, You guys, so sour. It tastes like a Sour Patch Kid. But going back to credibility, personality, this is part of it. So content, the credibility and uniqueness, they're kind of like, they're like that. They go a little bit together. And uniqueness. Oh, I love uniqueness. Okay, listen. You are your uniqueness. You are special. And to give you some parameters around this, aside from like the exercise where you list all your favorite things about yourself and how to amplify that online, that's such a good exercise to get some of the structure for this going, or some of the brainstorming going for how you want to show up in the world. But also these two little exercises might be good if you're coming up dry or if you're really, really not sure. So if you only had 30 seconds to tell somebody who you are, what would you say? And just like unfiltered brain dump, write this in the notes app of your phone or on a scratch piece of paper. I want you to think about what you would actually say. And sometimes that brain dumpy blah, 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 word vomit, in that is so many good little nuggets that can be repurposed for other things. And from like brain dumpy writing, from bad writing, comes really, really good writing. And then also thinking about your uniqueness, think of 3 interesting and relevant points about you and just elaborate on them. So if just brain dumping and then cleaning it up stresses you out, if you're like, Liz, I so don't want to write. And then I'm like, hey, you're safe. Don't. This is a great option. If I just say 3 interesting and relevant things about you, it sort of also reminds me of like when you look at like Instagram bios, and you can go to Instagram.com/Liz Theresa if you want to see what I'm referring to. But like my bio on Instagram is just bullet points. It's more than 3 facts, but it's bullety, and it could give you kind of a framework and be like, okay, like if I were using that as a framework, what would I say? Because I don't own that framework. That's just a way to do it. And I think sometimes providing structure for writing and brain dumping, it helps alleviate some of the pressure around what I have to say is perfect. Which is to also tell you, do not try to impress people with your writing. Write like you talk. Use your voice. And of course, it's yours after all. You're already enough to be like, and you are also enough of a special sauce. You are the special sauce. You're the gooey center. It's the best part of the cake. Often the best. I mean, depends on the cake, but most of the time, it is the best part of the cake. So just remember that about yourself. So once we have credibility, high value content that positions us as an expert and lets people know what we're talking about, and we have uniqueness, which makes the content memorable. See how they connect. Then we can build authority. Hooray, you guys. Authority is like very fun. I know I give a lot of credit to credibility, but authority is way fun. So aside from having a branded.com and clear brand on social media, which everybody make sure to buy your .com. I think I have another slide where I perpetuate telling you that, but it's really important. That's probably why I say it a few times. Here are some ways to build authority. So like joining professional networking groups and organizations, even if like you're antisocial. I'm in a really great one called Boston Business Women. And a lot of it is just networking in the Facebook group. So even if you're like, I hate people, that's a good one for not having to go anywhere. Of course, it's for women in the greater Boston area, but still wicked fun. But there's professional networking groups everywhere. And sometimes it takes a little bit of trial and error to find what's right for you. Of course, there's B&I groups, which you're either like cringing when I said it or like, or you're like, I don't know what they are, but sometimes they're not somebody's cup of tea, but they might be yours. So sometimes it takes a little bit to find your fit. But like what's good about this is a huge part of building authority, because all of these ways here are you showing up as the CEO of your personal brand or of your business, right? It's your way of showing up in your life and being like, okay, I want to work at a higher level. I want to keep raising my own bar. Of course, celebrating on your way up, because I think people don't do that enough. But of course, reading books, following and learning from the fancy people. Remember the fancy people. Giving seminars. Oh my gosh, here I am doing that. Accumulating testimonials. The only one here that I think really deserves a little bit of extrapolation is HARO. So just so you guys know and are familiar with HARO, HARO is Help a Reporter Out. That's what it stands for. And it's helpareporter.com. And what it is, it's like a listserv type of email service. It gets sent out 3 times a day, but you can also limit that if you're like, I hate email. And basically it's just you pick your categories for your areas of expertise, and then press people, so like people that are journalists and the like, will send out a call for pitches. Like, I'm looking for an expert on dogs and behavior. I'm just making one up. And then like, if you're the dog whisperer person, you'll be like, hey, I got you. And then you can pitch it. And I have an article, like, so if you guys are like really into pitching and you kind of want to go in the PR direction, I do have an article on my blog at liztheresa.com, or you can email me and I'll just send you the link, or DM me somewhere and I can get it to you on how to write a really good pitch. But that's definitely what that part's about. Is authority is really like being seen as the expert. So now that, because you've kind of done your meat, you've done the bottom part of the cake, you're ready for the top. You're ready for the top. Doesn't that totally go along with authority? It does. Really, really, really does. This is to say, you want to make sure you claim your name. So you want to own your name, establish your brand as a .com. Try to accept no less than that. My husband is named James Anderson. It's a very common name. There's like a kajillion James Andersons. So he had to settle for like jamesanderson.media. But fortunately for me, I own Liz Downey and LizTheresa.com. I don't even know if there's I don't really go by Liz Anderson other than taxes. So like, I haven't worried about that one too much, but it is really good to own your name. So buying up everything, if you can afford it. I think I bought my brother's because he was being cheap, but a domain name is like $10 or $12 a year. You never want to let that expire. It is not the thing to cut in your budget, because I mean, take it from me. One of my, I have a few clients that have this problem, and there's nothing wrong with, well, I'm just going to tell you what it is, what it is. But one of my clients like has a certain name, and then like she can't buy it because it's like a porn star has that name. And so then she had to like, and then I was like, you should just change your name slightly professionally, just so then you can kind of have a cleaner slate. So sometimes you might have, and then I have another client who her name is the same name as like a murderer. And so like every time you type in the name, it's like, this person's in prison or is on trial for murdering. And it's a really kind of a bad story. So this is why owning your name is important, because it gets you, it's not to say no one named Liz Theresa will ever do something dumb, but I've created enough link authority that if there is a Liz Theresa that makes a mistake, I'm the cooler one in the eyes of Google, right? And because Google, this is personal branding, is also like what shows up when people Google you, right? So like if people Google you and you don't like what they see, this is part of combating that, right? And it takes time. Search engine strategy takes time, but this is a wonderful initial step. And no matter who you are, you need a website, not just because I sell them, but they're really important. They're kind of the foundation on which you can thrive. If they were a cake, okay, maybe it's like websites, credibility. Okay, I'll stop you guys, but you get what I'm saying. It's kind of like your footing. It's what people find. You want to be happy about what people find, okay? You don't want people to find you, I don't know, looking like a murderer. If you remember nothing, remember this. Other little tip, this is like a housekeeping kind of tip for personal branding, is to make your profile photo. And once you have a good bio, kind of like the Instagram format I told you, or whatever bio works for you, making sure it's consistent wherever you can be found. And this is so as to not create confusion to somebody that's looking you up, so they can see how you fit into their world. So like if you are somebody who is a job seeker, you want this to be consistent. Like you don't want to be like, I like country music on Twitter, but then like on Instagram, you're like, I am very serious about birds and I want a job in the bird industry. I don't know. I thought about birds. I probably just saw a bird, like my window's right there. It's probably why. So this is to say, this just makes you look more polished. It's not to say you can't talk about your love of country music while also talking about birds, but you want your foundational elements, like your picture, your profile photo, and your bios to be consistent as much as possible. Oh, again, the whole website thing. You guys are probably like, Liz, we get it, and you need to put your agenda away. And I'd be like, you guys, I have so many agendas. I have an agenda buying problem, but it's true. You seriously need a website, a branded website with these kinds of pages. You don't have to have specifically all of these pages, but these types of pages would be fabulous. You always need an about page. You need some type of value-driven content. So like a podcast, obviously I love podcasting, but podcasting is great. If you're like, I love videos and you want to do a YouTube channel, that's great. If you're like, Liz, I only have time in my brain for Instagram, then let's embed that on your website. But like, find your medium. The best part of content marketing, what I think is a really good way to think about content marketing, is to first find your medium. So like for me, and this will not come as a shock to you, I'm really good at talking. Like that's my happy place. I do have a lit background and writing background, but I much prefer to just tell people stuff. And then afterward, like they retain it and then I'm done. So I'm definitely a talker. That's why my podcast is probably good, because people seem to like it. And so for you, you might be like, Liz, I love to write, blogging. Or you're like, Liz, I would much prefer to be on video so I can talk with my hands and people can watch me do that, or whatever it is, YouTube. So there is a medium for everybody. And once you find it, don't feel pressured that you're like, okay, I'm YouTubing and I have to have a podcast and I have to do everything. You don't have to do everything. Find your medium, get really, really good at it. It's sort of like if you've ever heard folks teach that you should just pick one social media platform and be extremely good at it. That's true too. It's not to say that you shouldn't have them all set up and like have them all synergized with one another, have the same profile photos and bios and links and whatever. That's true. But as far as usage, to maintain your sanity and also to create the strongest presence possible, it's best to pick just one. Like there was a woman on my podcast. This is kind of interesting. If you guys are really into LinkedIn, there's a woman on my podcast. Her name is Judy Fox, and she is a hoot. Like you'd really like her. She's very fun to listen to. And her medium is LinkedIn, and specifically LinkedIn video. And so like going live on LinkedIn, that's her favorite thing to do. And everything else is just frosting, right? In her strategy. But LinkedIn is like, that's where she just thrives and loves to exist. So find it for you. It could be different. Aside from having the credibility, right? The credibility, you can see how the cake is coming into play here. We got your credibility. We have like your uniqueness and your about page, the necessary thing of what you do. What are we doing here, guys? Right? Like that's your work with me stuff. So it might be, if you're a professional, it's your resume. If you're a service provider or want to be, it's what you're good at. And maybe if you want to freelance, that's also what would be there too. Contact me page, and it should be a form. Don't just paste your email, because then you'll get lots of spam. So contacting you should usually be a form. And then press features. So as you get interesting, authority will start to come to you. And so as you attract press, you might have a whole page of your website full of times that people talked about you. How cool is that? I mean, I look at LizTheresa.com/press is my press page. And I'm like, wow. It's so like, if I have a bad day, I'll look at that and be like, oh, I was featured in that thing and they liked me. So my day isn't that bad, but press is so good. Along with testimonials, social proof builds credibility and authority. And the website is really just a really good way to kind of get your ducks in an organized row, right? It's a good way to have a really strong foundation. About high value content, it's one thing to say it's good, but like you always want to think of it as something that could be reshared and repurposed, and like people will enjoy it. So thinking about like, if you're posting something, I don't want to give you more things to think about, and yet I do. When you think about high value content, you want to post it and be like, are people going to share this? And if the answer is yes, then you know it's good. Or like, would I share this if I saw this? Sometimes it's good to think like that. And of course, monitoring the industry news of the field that you're really, really interested in, getting published, all of these things. There's so many, I mean, there's no lack of resources when it comes to building your personal brand, but there is a lack of resourcefulness. And this is somebody else in my podcast said that, so I can't take credit, but it's such a good thing to remember, is because it's like there's no lack of tools. There's so many ways to get from A to B, right? And it's sort of just like, like this, I'm just representing, I'm giving you some tools. And so once you find your thing, your jam out, you know what I'm saying? And why create content? Well, like it's a lot of people who have profiles. There's many, right? People that have profiles and say interesting, valuable things. There's not as many. And so it's how you can differentiate yourself. That whole thing of a differentiation, it is chalked up to uniqueness, but like uniqueness and credibility, they do this, right? And again, when you're thinking about SEO and you're like, I want to be in charge of what people Google, or like I want to have some control over what shows up, Google is going to notice websites and social profiles that are updated. It creates backlinks. It gives you maybe not, I don't want to say total control, but it gives you some more influence over like how people can perceive you. And this is the big mistake everybody makes. Being the person who is an expert in everything and anything. You are not that person. This is my PSA. You are not that person. You should not try to be that person. It will make you very tired. And so picking a niche or focus in your content online, even in your work, I mean, this translates to work, even if like, you're like, I'm not here for social change, but I'm here for like getting into the dog business. I have a lot of dog clients. Apparently, I really do though. It's so funny. But finding your thing and then creating content there. And it's not betraying other things that you're interested in. You're welcome to pepper in, like I pepper in pictures of my baby, but I don't sell babies. I sell websites, right? So like you can pepper in your personality and things that are not explicitly related, but like you should find a focus and be okay with the fact that you're showing up and saying it. Last tips. These are important ones that are not super related, but related and important to tell you. Don't put anything in writing you don't want reshared 1,000 times. I've seen so many people send stupid emails and say stupid things on the internet. Be extreme, be precise, and don't just go on there to trigger people or argue in Facebook groups. Everybody's got to stop that. Get off. If you want to argue in a Facebook group, go outside and breathe some oxygen and you'll feel better. It's just not worth it. Delete the solo cups pictures of you in your profile because no one wants to see those anymore. If you love them, scrapbook or make somebody else do that. But that shouldn't be there too. Go combing through old stuff. And if it doesn't resonate, removing it where you can. That is a good example of that. And be a good human. Use your platform for good. Like I said, having a platform, having a voice, it is a privilege. Use it well. And of course, you can go to liztheresa.com, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, anywhere, and I got you. Yeah. Thank you.
Liz, that was fantastic. Thank you. So we did have somebody ask about if this would be recorded. So as a reminder, it is being recorded. It will be available through the alumni office. I, for one, will be going back and listening because I literally have 4 pages of notes here on things that usually I'm taking notes. I'm like, oh, I should ask about this. And oh, I'm curious about this. It's mostly things like to-do lists for myself. So I got a ton out of it already. So thank you. So we have some questions that came through. So the first one, Jean was asking what SEO stands for. And I forget what context that was in. So
that's okay. So SEO, when you see that, it means search engine optimization. So that's what SEO stands for. And so when I refer to it, it's sort of like when you think about optimizing search, you want to make search work for you. So when you're working on your personal brand, it gives you a level of influence over what's going to show up, right? So like if there is a murderer with your name in the future, if you've done personal branding, it's not going to ruin you online.
Perfect. All right. And then, so that was from Jean. So thank you, Jean. She also asked, on your website, she's specifically saying, I think in her case, she's an actor. Yeah. Should you write about yourself in the first or third person?
Oh, this is a good question. So I actually like to do both. I like to have a personal sort of, I'm Liz, this is what I do on my website, but then I have a professional bio, and I explicitly even say professional bio, if you're into that sort of thing, because there are certain people that want to see like what you're cut from. And so professional bios are where you can have all your street cred, like I have 100 degrees and 100 things, and I cured a disease. That's where you put all that stuff. That's important.
Lead with the disease curing. That's my
Yeah,
advice.
that's impressive. I made the COVID vaccine right there.
That's first and foremost.
First and foremost.
Well, it's funny actually. Jean also pointed out she heard a story on NPR about a company named COVID, who obviously was the top Google search result for COVID for a long time, and not anymore.
Yeah, hopefully there's going to be no Liz Theresa disease. That would really screw the pooch.
Oh yeah, hopefully not. No hurricanes either.
No.
So Deb was asking about linking personal websites, and so she's asking, you mean literal links, right? So you were talking both about literal links, but also like creating that consistency across your platforms and your site, right?
Yeah. It's you. I mean, you want your website should always be a hub, right? And when you think about like what is a hub, it's a hub that has different paths, and so all of your different views on the internet should be linked through your website. So that's true. So your website, if you think about like a hub, like a spider web, and it goes to like your Facebook, Instagram, and so on. And then then the way that you show up on those places, your profile photo and bio and links should always be consistent.
Perfect. So I think there's a really good image for it. I love the cake image, by the way, but as a hub or spidering out from that. And I also like, I think one of the themes or the things that I took away from this is like the need to kind of look from the outside in, right? So a lot of this is not about like what I personally think about myself, although you want to highlight the things that you, as you said, that you do like or that you're trying to put out there, but taking the other viewpoint and saying like, what do other people see when they look at me? And trying to change that and take a little bit of control of that, because you can feel a little helpless sometimes. It's like, well, people are going to think what they want to think, or I can't control people's opinions. And then I also like tying that one of your last points was be a good human. And you also at some point said, if you're not funny, be friendly. Yeah. And I've never heard somebody put it quite like that. I like those two things, because I know for me personally that the people that I connect with or want to listen to the most, especially like in my field or like where I want to hear expertise, are the people who are funny first of all, but most people aren't. Not everybody's funny or comes across as funny to you, but those who are friendly and who are genuinely like concerned with other people or making sure they're not being, I don't know, offensive or however you want to put it. I think there's a lot there in terms of like being a little bit more aware of the world around you, both how they see you and how you also put yourself out there a bit.
It reminds me a lot, because I was an actor, and I actually, when I was at Stonehill, I went to acting competition because I was like the best partner at the competition, or I was like, I got some kind of notoriety for that. And when you think about being a good acting partner in a scene, it is about being solicitous, right? So even like friendly, you think about what friendly means, and then the word solicitous. How can I be customer servicey as a person? How can I take care? Because even if you're not funny, if you're giving, that's huge,
That's incredibly good personal advice as well as business advice too. I really like that. Just the idea of like, in order to get, you have to give, right? Or you have to invest, right? I think those all connect really well. Emily has a great question. So do you have any tips for establishing yourself on a new platform? For example, she wants to introduce herself on TikTok because it's becoming a big platform for artists.
No, this is such a good question. I mean, I think once you have your bio and all of that, all of your foundational elements figured out, and I would say of your foundational elements, like on your website, making sure you have some type of lead acquisition. So you're capturing people on, like, that's the connection between websites and social, is that when I say lead acquisition, a contact form, newsletter opt-in, something to make sure that you get that you're doing something with traffic. Because if the traffic comes, you want to get it to do something. You want to keep the email addresses. As long as that foundational stuff is set up, I think the second thing you need to do is give yourself permission to not have to be perfect the first time you post a video, and know that you can always go back later and take it down. Because I've seen so many people like wait to start because they're like, I don't know what to say, or something, or it might not be perfect. And it's like, if you go back to my old YouTube videos, woof. I mean, I was not perfect, but I was there, and done is better than nothing. Done is better than perfect.
Right. And especially, I mean, that's really good advice too for I mean, in general, but yeah, especially a new social platform or something like that, I guess you wouldn't know really. You have to try. Like it's an experienced good or platform, right? Like the only way you know where your niche is or how people are going to react is to start doing things. And I'm sure, as you said, most people have that experience where it's like they start out and like, oh, this is great, and then 3 months later, like, what was I even thinking? This this makes no sense. But yeah, the internet is forever, but you also, people have to put in a lot of effort if they want to find stuff that you delete. So
you got to do it.
Can hide it.
TikTok, there's nuances and like you have to do them to get better.
Yeah.
That's what I would say with TikTok, especially.
Yep. Ask a young person.
Yeah. That's right.
TikTok for dummies. Ask a young person. But yeah, no, that's really good advice. Start doing it, start trying it. And I think it goes back to your point about content. So everybody has a platform online. A much smaller percentage of people make any content, really. I mean, everybody has a little bit, right? If you're on Instagram or whatever. But in terms of consistent content, that's one thing that you do. One thing you would pick up from people is like the people that you follow already, or that you listen to, or if you're on LinkedIn and you actually see somebody where you're like, oh, I'm gonna follow this person's posts or whatever, in that kind of professional setting. There are always people who are consistent, like just putting out content. Some of it's very small, short, some of it's longer, but that's an automatic differentiator. And then to your point about having a niche, how do you work with clients in terms of that? Like, because this both goes to a business sense too. There's a million dog businesses out there. Okay. So how do you become a niche dog business of some sort? So do you have any kind of general advice or like strategies? Because you've gave some really good tactical things that we could do in a lot of different areas. So in terms of like that uniqueness in creating a niche, do you have any kind of general advice there, or where you could start to figure that out?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people know what they want to do, but they don't know who they want to do it for. And I think if you answer the second question, which is a who question and not a what question, and the way to get there is I usually say, who would you not mind being trapped in an elevator with? Right? Or who would you not mind having a 6-hour coffee date with at a Starbucks? And that is your person that you want to be serving or creating products for. And when you get to know that person, because you want to get to know that person, at least like abstractly, like, because that's who you're going to be spending time with in your work and in your life.
That's really good. A really good perspective. I think because to me, it's like, I would think of it as much more like, oh, who would want to spend 6 hours with me? That's the person I want to go out and find.
Yeah.
But you're right. Right. Like if you're the one making the content or providing the service, to create that kind of passion, which you clearly have for what you do, it's like you would want somebody who's like just as into it as you, and say like, well, imagine all the things I can do for you. You're into this. You want to hear what I have to say, ready, set, go. Here I go. Okay. We get lots of thank yous from people in the chat.
Thank you, guys.
Very happy. We have about a minute left. So again, if anybody has any other questions, then feel free to throw them in the chat in the next minute or so. If not, we can get you to Liz, right? We'll be able to share your contact info. So you can reach out to the alumni office directly for that. If you want to put it in the chat or anything like that.
I'll put it in the chat. Let's see, everyone.
All right, perfect. And then while you're doing that, so how much time do you need to spend like focusing on your personal brand weekly? Especially if you're, I'm thinking about this. This is a question from Alexis, but I think about this too in terms of like running a business, or you have a main day job and you're trying to build this on the side or something. Like, how much of this is like it has to be your constant all day, everyday focus, or is it like this should be in the back of your mind? Like, how much time are you actively kind of going out and make sure to focus on this?
I'm a very busy person too, and I have a baby. I'm very tired, you guys. So like, what I will say I do is I think if you pick your one medium, it reduces the overwhelm around creating content. And then secondly, I batch content. So like I will write it in like the span of an hour, 2 hours once a month. And then I schedule it to go out. And I make sure it's good because it's good stuff. Because I also am a person who repurposes stuff that worked before and whatever. So there's little tricks of the trade that allow me to do it. The first time that you try to batch your content, it might take you a whole day, right? But then you go down and down as you become used to it. It might take a couple hours, but yeah, batching is huge for me in saving time and sanity.
So it's more about like just making sure you do schedule the time rather than like your whole life now is Liz Theresa everywhere.
Oh no, because I need, like, you guys, I know I seem very extroverted, but I'm like an extroverted introvert. Like, I need a lot of downtime. I have a lot of energy, and it comes from going to sleep. And rest is productive. So everybody that's all go, go, go all the time, anybody that's listening that's very tired, please take a day for yourself and rest, because rest is really important for your body and your mind. So
that's the one piece of advice I can't take is rest.
oh.
I haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah.
We'll all get there someday.
No one has.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, this was incredible. I think we're at time here. So again, if anybody has any other questions, we can connect you back to Liz. So I just want to thank you, Liz, so much. Like I said, I literally have 4 pages of notes. So I have lots of stuff to do. I will now be scheduling out my content as well. So thank you to the alumni office and Alexis, as always, for having me. And without further ado, turn it back to Alexis.
I think it's so crazy because there were so many things to think about in the presentation, and I was also thinking about it from like an alumni office standpoint, because we brand ourselves every day, so some of those pieces are certainly helpful and interesting there when you're branding something that's not yourself, right?
Yeah.
A very, very good content and great to think about, and definitely everyone feel free to reach out to Liz if you have any other questions. I was also thinking about Corona beer, how they probably had a really bad year, right? So
yeah, I haven't craved
somebody
it.
else said something about they had like their name of the company was COVID, and I was thinking, poor Corona beer, they've had a tough year.
That is a tough time. Bad name to be named that. Bad time to be named that.
Anyways, thank you as always, Rob, for facilitating the question and answers. You always do such a great job. And to Liz for taking the time to share your expertise with us today. It was great. And if anyone has any additional questions or would like to provide any feedback regarding this presentation, we always encourage you to email us at alumni@bridgew.edu. And I will give a little shout out here. We actually have a new website that we have worked hard on this year for our own personal brand, making us, fit more in with the Bridgewater style. And it is now bridgew.edu/alumni. So you will be redirected if you use our old site, but I figure if we're talking about branding, I should definitely throw a little new website.
Yes.
And to anyone on the call today, please consider attending our next Aluminar on June 16th. It's entitled The Asset Mindset, a Special Forces Perspective for Achieving Success. And it's with a former Special Forces soldier and BSU alum, Daniel Fielding. He has a lot to share with us, so please feel free to register for that. And the registrations are currently open on the alumni webpage, and any additional notifications and links regarding, like, if you want to watch this Aluminar, the video will be up in the next day or so, and you can also feel free to register for June. And I do want to mention that we will be taking off July and August from Aluminars, and they will be returning in full force in September. So June is our last Aluminar of the series, and we will be back in September. And on behalf of the entire Alumni Relations Office, we thank you for taking the time to join us today. We hope each of you enjoy the rest of your beautiful sunny afternoon, have continued health and happiness, and we look forward to seeing you at a future virtual or in-person at Homecoming 2021, October 23rd event. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.